Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is the co-founder and CEO of Amira, Loewen Cavill. Loewen, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. Let's dive right in. The go-to question I always ask guests is, you're walking down the street, someone runs into you, you mention that you're building this company, Amira. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I love that question as it comes up on every day. Amira is really about unlocking the potential of women through technology. I think this is something that we have super under-addressed for the last several decades. And I think now is the time that we can utilize all these tools to unlock our potential through unlocking our health.
What made you want to even start this company in the first place? I guess take it back a sec. Like, what was the aha
Yeah.
moment that's like, I need to do
Yeah.
this?
Well, that was just the trendy thing that everyone was talking about in grade school, is how everyone wanted to work in menopause one day. No, I kid. The moment that really hit me was when my aunt was hospitalized from something that she took to relieve her hot flashes. I didn't even know that she was going through menopause, let alone the full swings that it provided for her. But she was waking up 4 to 5 times a night for 4 years straight. This got so bad that she was so sleep deprived that she was not able to show up as herself anymore. She was not able to show up in the workplace and with family in health like she normally can. So she went to every doctor, every naturopath, acupuncturist, all of it. Tried all the supplements, spent well over $10,000 on different gimmicky menopause solutions, one of which sent her to the hospital as side effects. This is what started kind of like the cliff dive into menopause. After that, I spoke to about 350 menopausal women and doctors in this space, and was just so astounded how little development had been done. I used to help teach physics at MIT, and the depths of knowledge we have in physics is huge, deep, deep oceans. But then when you tread into the menopause waters and our understanding of menopause, you step in and you realize it is really only an inch deep, despite this problem being around since the origins of humans. And I think this is one of the areas that engineers can actually have the biggest impact in unlocking human potential. Since so little has been done, we're going to see so much change, so much rich understanding that we can act on in the next decade here, that you'll really be able to see the value that you create in the world, which I think is something that we all want to do. Like, we want to look back on our life and see that we left a positive impact in this world. And I think menopause is really one of those areas that you can bring the biggest impact with an engineering mentality right now.
So menopause is an interesting. So when you look at specifically to the women that are building companies that are tackling menopause, right? It seems like we hear a lot more about the menopause space maybe in the last 2 years than we ever did before. Not that it wasn't. It's always been something that
Yeah,
happens, right? But it's definitely been a hotter space in the women's health industry to invest in and grow
totally.
companies in. What's interesting is, a lot of founders start companies to solve problems that they have. But this space is interesting because, this is something that you'll face in the future, but you get to kind of, build the solutions that impact also for you personally. Like,
Yeah.
that is just such a, like, that does not happen in like any other space. So what does it mean for you to also be able to, build a company, build a solution that's going to have impact, not just today for the people, but also for, your generation as well?
Totally. I have so many answers to this question. This is very, very deep in who it is to be Lowen, both from like Midwestern attitude on helping others, and then also from like the little girl that wanted a role model to follow. And I think one of the biggest reasons that we aren't seeing that many female role models in the workplace, in rooms of power, is because right as they're getting to that final mile of the marathon in mid 40s, they're having to step out of the race because they're no longer able to sleep. They're no longer able to regulate their mood, regulate their mind, all because of menopause. So, what we need to give those little girls those role models, not just in small town Milford, Ohio, but everywhere across the world, is unlocking the potential of women at that final mile so that they can make it through to the other side. Because what you get when those women are able to that climb that full ladder, you raise the ceiling of belief for all those younger women. So this is not in my head as much of a cause for menopause specifically, but for unlocking women's potential broadly. I think that this really does have a huge trickle down effect.
Who'd you say, you know, up to this point in your life has had the biggest impact on you personally?
That question's going to get me emotional. I think I've been lucky in so many ways. The area that I've been most statistically lucky is my family. I have a phenomenal family. My mom has always been a empowered working woman. My grandpa has raised hundreds and hundreds of cattle and like creating such a high integrity cattle farm for us to learn from as kids and like collaborate with and see that. I think those two have been phenomenal role models. So is my dad. My dad brings a helping attitude everywhere he goes, and like such a selfless act is his life. And I hope to embody, the strength and courage of my mom, the integrity of my grandpa, and the selfless willingness to help with my dad.
I love that. Cattle farm is interesting.
Oh,
Um,
it's the best place ever.
I,
I was just there, and your nervous system when you're just on the farm with no people around is just so reset, and you feel
you
so
just
at
feel really
peace.
calm. It's a calming.
Yeah, yeah, very.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never been, but you're
Yeah,
not the first person I've heard that there's that calming effect being around the animals and that just that atmosphere.
yeah, and I think it's definitely kind of wired into my framework of what I've spent time on. So in the summers, I would work on this cattle farm, and what work there looks like you're not sitting on your computer. You are, lifting up 50-pound bags of cattle feed and like cleaning stuff out of the cattle feeders. So it's very physical, and it ties to the physical strength of your health. And the other side of me was spending all my time when I wasn't on the farm, I was playing soccer and was a very competitive athlete. And that is very tied to the physical health of your body. And that was mixed with my like love of math. Was lucky to continue that at MIT, where you can see these two come together. Is how can we use sensors, mathematical analysis to better enable the physical strength of our bodies, to unlock that power, whether it's in um, work or physical embodiments.
Super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What I would love to so throughout the interview, what I like to do is kind of go back and forth, right, with life, the
Yeah,
company. So I'll go
yeah,
back to Amira now.
yeah,
I would love to hear how you're approaching innovation to let's say to stay ahead of the competition.
totally. Um, we are kind of a contrarian player in the menopause space. If you look at the menopause space broadly, we have seen a lot of telehealth companies pop up. We've seen a lot of HRT pharmacies or HRT direct to consumer brands, but we haven't seen a lot of novel sensing, novel response, novel hardware solutions. And what we need is we need multiple paths to solve this problem with menopause, because menopause has over 48 symptoms. It's wild. And each woman wants to go down a different path or may need a different path based on her biology. So, how we are going about it is we're going about it from a sensing AI first approach using the MIT minds that I was so lucky and blessed to get to know while at college, to really kind of re engineer the space. And I think that's less the attitude we've seen in menopause so far. Is it's been more of a rebranding approach, which I think is really important. It's really important to have that story of empowerment, but I think that we also need inventions to physically empower those women as well.
Super interesting. It's menopause is just so different than a lot of the things that you could be like it has like you were saying like so many different variables, so many different symptoms, which does make it still a challenge to create solutions to better help it, right? What's What was a challenge you faced in building Amira that you kind of, it was a challenge, but then you took that challenge and you created it into an opportunity?
I think that we are all primarily status creatures. And what is the high status thing to be working on in Silicon Valley? Frankly, it is not menopause hardware. And it's very like not the cultural norm to be doing that. But at the same time, that's kind of an opportunity because you can go to this space where the other MIT engineers are not and really disrupt things in a way that the space is not currently being disrupted in. So I think while it is not the norm, it is not the statusy thing to be working on in the Silicon Valley MIT circles. I think that there's even more reason that because we're in those circles, we should be operating and inventing in this space where the rest of us are not.
What was it like to get your education at MIT? Were there particular professors that had a substantial impact on you during your time? Were there any key projects that you worked on while there that you really think shaped your career?
Oh my gosh, MIT is heaven on earth is what totally surprised me to figure out. I thought it would be hell, and it was like a hell that was actually heaven. It was so challenging. Every week you're presented with more than you think is possible for you to do. And then somehow at the end of each week, you make it past that and achieve so much more than you thought you could. Um, there's times through, MIT robotics racings in the tunnels of MIT, or when we were building the Hyperloop and our whole Hyperloop machine got caught on fire 2 weeks before a race and we had to put it all together in 2 weeks before the race. There were so many moments there where you're like, oh, it's the end of the world. We're not going to be able to pass this. And then you surpass that. It really changes what you believe you can do and what you are capable of. The actual specifics of like the electrical engineering circuit classes, I don't remember very well at this point. But what I do remember is how to learn and how to kind of like believe that I can do more than I currently believe I can do.
Did you ever go to Darwin's?
Yes, yes, that was my go-to coffee shop. It's
The
phenomenal.
best.
It's closed down that now though, so I'm pretty sad
That
about
one
that.
closed?
But great, yeah, great egg sandwiches.
Yeah, they had
Sorry to
really
break
good.
it to you.
I remember like meeting people up to do work there, and you'd go
Yeah,
there like beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day you could also stay for a drink, for food. Like it was an all day place you could be. Oh, that's
exactly.
sad.
It was perfection. It was great.
Damn, I did not know that. All right, well, you just broke the
Yeah,
news to me.
yeah.
uh what uh what have you learned since starting Amira in terms of being a leader? Like what lessons have you learned about what you want your leadership style to look like, I guess?
That's such a good question. I think it's even more pressing question for women, frankly, because I think a lot of the leadership styles we have seen have been from more male CEOs. And you're never as good at pretending to be someone else that you are in leading into what you're naturally good at. So that is an ongoing exploration of what am I doing because I saw male leaders that I'd followed before did this, or what am I doing because it's innately me, even if it's kind of in contrast to that. So that's an exploration. Um, I think a big one that every founder has to face is the reality of the emotional roller coaster that starting a company is. Because you will have two of the highest highs and three of the lowest lows in your life by 1 p.m. in a single day. And going through that roller coaster all the time is really challenging. And then to also not take that out on other people, maybe you had four hard calls and like really harsh meetings, and then you have to go have a one-on-one with your employee and you have to not lay that on them. So processing emotions really quickly, pausing the processing of emotions for when you can't take it and doing it later, listening to it, making sure that you're not being driven by like subconscious ego that you never resolved from some other time that you were hurt or bothered is really important. So that's been really interesting. Become a lot better at meditation because of that.
Were there certain leaders, either male or female or both, that you kind of idolize before starting Amira?
Yeah, the leader I loved the most when I was a child, I found this 100-year-old book in this flea market once upon a time, and it was Benjamin Franklin's autobiography. And for me, that felt like that was my secret window into his mind. And it was like beautiful red bound leather with like gold imprints that I got for like $2 or something. Um, and what I really appreciated in him is his commitment to improving every day, challenging himself in new ways, leaning into curiosity while having that discipline. I find really inspiring. And I think that what he did is he always had held himself to a higher standard than he did to others, which I think is a beautiful thing. And then we should all internally do, making us more compassionate to others and then also enabling ourselves to grow even higher.
I love it. 100-year-old book you found at a flea market. Go figure.
It was so great.
That's really cool. As we begin to wrap up here, we have a
Mhm.
segment that we like to do lately called Worst Advice, Best Advice. So, first, I want to hear the worst piece of advice you've ever received. What was that? And then follow that with the best piece of advice you've received.
Worst piece of advice. I mean, not gonna lie, we do kind of get a lot of these from people that don't understand the menopause market. Speaking to the menopause market, there's a lot of sentiment that the menopause market is extremely small, extremely niche. I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's not. We had an investor tell us once to switch to the male hot flash market versus women's hot flashes, which I'm going to tell you is a much, much smaller market, and investors shouldn't recommend you decrease your market size by like 100x. So I think that was a bad piece of advice. But luckily, I had lots of pieces of advice, and then also had lots of conversations with our users and the market itself. Best piece of advice. This is a tough one. I mean, one thing that has been really helpful for me is like kind of that sentiment of you can only be the best at what is most honest to self. When we've been doing this brand crafting, there's been a back and forth on like how much we should lean into the data analysis to match what is currently out there and blend in with what people already approve of. And then there's the more contrarian approach where some artists will say, this is my piece of art. And I'm not going to ask for anyone's approval. I'm not going to ask if anyone likes it. This is just what I need to create. And then others can like it if they want. And I think that's where you can get something that speaks to one's inner truth versus just matches to the societal norm at the time. And I think that you can do that in a leadership style as well. I think you can do that in how you operate with your employees. I think having a defined culture, having a defined brand identity, you have to look kind of inwards for, listen to others as well. But at the end of the day, it should be true to self and something that can self replicate. So I think that's been a good one for us.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the podcast here today, sharing some thoughts. I definitely want to get you to come back because I really enjoyed our conversation. For those that I did really enjoy it. I don't know why, but when I'm really into listening to people, I tend not to smile as much, and that's something I'm trying to work on. But I was very
No
serious face when
worries.
you were talking the whole time, but I was
Yeah,
very interested in what you're saying. I
that's
used to
funny.
always say when I'd say who's the guy that does the was it is it Lex like
Lex
Friedman?
Friedman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to always say he's so serious, and I don't want to be serious. But then I do
Hmm.
get so serious in these. So
Yeah. That's how
I
I was
want to
in
thank you
sports.
so
I'd always stick my tongue out when I'm focused, which is
Oh, like
not good in
Michael
photos.
Jordan? Yeah.
Yeah, not good in photos.
It's oh man. Yeah, it's oh man, that's funny. Well, I want to thank you again so much for joining me on the podcast here today and can't wait for future conversations.
Yeah, great meeting you.